like you said, and these are things I've literally said in the last few weeks, is like, hey man, when we come out of this thing, the value propositions are going to be safety, familiarity, right? Cleanliness, those type of things. But what we found is as people are getting out, they're just like, like, I get it. Like, gosh, give me, like, can I just come in, hear some music, talk to some other people that I don't live with 24/7, my family, and have a good time and not talk about COVID or politics or anything. Like, can I just get a break from my own self for 2 seconds? That's what we're seeing. And so, yeah, those other things are important, but maybe not as important from a marketing standpoint as we thought, because right now people just want normalcy. And for those that want it, that's the message we're taking to market.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And on today's episode, I have a returning giant, the giant in the industry right now, Rick Mayo. And he is the giant in the industry because he looks pretty damn good for a guinea pig. He's got a gym in Atlanta, and they've been open for 2 weeks. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about all the issues and all the procedures and protocols and strategies around that. So, and for those of you who don't know Rick Mayo, this guy is, he's one of my favorite people. He's a mentor of mine. He helped start the mastermind group I'm a part of. And he has the most profitable training gym in the country that he's licensed and now moving into franchising it. So the guy is a major player in the fitness industry. He sits on all kinds of boards. He's on the board, one of the boards for the Association of Fitness Studios, which this is the official podcast of. So the guy has been around since those bodybuilder pants and fanny packs. And he has evolved to this major baller in the industry. So Rick, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, sir. And listen,
Yeah.
I have not evolved beyond muscle pants and fanny packs. It's just that modern fashions don't allow me to get away with it. But I am the first one to say I'm back in line for both of those things. I think you and I have discussed fanny packs at length on other podcasts, so we'll just leave it at that. But it's now a shoulder sling that somehow worked its way up from your fanny to the side of your arm. But hey, whatever. Like I like to go old school and wear it where it's supposed to be. But we'll see if that comes back. But yeah, man, thanks for having me on. We were really lucky to be the first state to open. We're rolling out in phases like many states are, but we actually, gyms were in phase 1, which I was surprised by that, just based on the general nature of gyms. Because remember, you and I, Jim, we are studios, and you're probably obviously through AFS talking to mostly studio owners. But gyms are gyms, right? And there's a big difference, as everyone listening knows, between a large, low-priced gym with 10,000 members or a studio model with 300 members, right? Completely different experience. But we are all lumped together at this point in time. And so when I heard gyms were in phase 1, I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised. And it was lumped in with some other odd businesses that I've mentioned in other podcasts. But it was tattoo, like some of the others that are just random, like tattoo artists, bowling alleys. I'm like, okay, like just some strange, combination of businesses that were allowed to open. And so we really got lucky to be in the first phase, and we've been open now. This is the end of our second week already. And so, yeah, I'm happy to share whatever you need me to with the listeners to kind of give them. I mean, the goal would be to give you guys a shortcut and a heads up on some of the things that we've done well, what the general sentiment is from the public, right? Some things that we might have missed on, things I didn't do well as a leader that I can hopefully give you guys a shortcut on as you reopen. So yeah, whatever you need to know, man, let's knock it out. I'm happy to share.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. And before we start, there's a couple of things I want to check off. One, I want to thank you for writing the introduction to my book. I really appreciate you doing that, taking the time to do that, because I know you're busy, man. And let me tell you something, it's dope. I really appreciate it. You did a great job.
My pleasure. I was honored to be asked, and I'm sorry it took me a minute, but this reopening's been a little wacky, as you can imagine. But yeah, man, I meant everything I said, and I probably had a lot more things I could have said. So you know how I feel about you, but it was my pleasure. Thanks for letting me do it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. It's going to go over well. And then also, before we started recording, I was venting to you because I'm in Missouri, and St. Louis County said they're going to open businesses on the 18th. So we're gearing up for the 18th. And then they announced today that gyms, bars, and everything are going to be closed indefinitely. So what I did was I wrote to the county executive outlining all the preparations that we're making, all the policies and procedures, our business model, how we're operate at a significantly lower capacity than a regular big box gym. So I petitioned for an exemption. So I say that to say that just because your state or wherever you may happen to be, your municipality, your county says gyms, they're probably referring to the big players that, have 3,000 plus members. But if you're a studio, you can control that environment a lot more. And I know you did that initially, Rick, right?
We did. So we have two gyms, brick and mortars here in Atlanta. And in one of the two, we had a local contact for the city. And we reached out to the city and petitioned to be able to stay open. And we did that as people were sort of rolling in, right? Getting ready to close. Then the governor overrode that decision and basically said everyone has to close, like shelter in place. But before that, yeah, we were actually able to extend staying open by petitioning the city, right, and saying, hey, we have a completely different business model than what you guys have in mind, even than most studios, honestly. We're not running elbow to elbow cycling classes or like high volume, low space sort of crammed together boot camp model either. So we could actually manage this really well. We will stick to these, guidelines, if you will, that the CDC and the president was putting out at the time, or whatever the general thinking was at that time. So yeah, we actually got an extension. It didn't last long because the governor overrode that soon after, but at least it was a small win for us for sure.
Yeah, but it's just the message is that you don't have to sit by and just say okay. You can still reach out to your local executives and say, hey, can we open because of all of these things? And make sure you list them and list all the protocols step by step, and you stick to them. Because what are they going to say? No, then you're in the same boat. If they say yes, then you can open back up and get a jump start on your competition. So that was the message there. But let's get into you opening, because you guys were the first state to open, along with bowling alleys and tattoo parlors, which is weird. But but I know you covered that in other podcasts. So let's jump first into the issues that you had with the team coming back, and then what you said to them. And I heard you talk about, and we talked about this on other podcasts too, is that, what role your leadership played in that.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to say I didn't do a great job in this regard. And people listening to this, if you are an owner or an entrepreneur, you'll understand maybe my side, right? My, I guess, lens on the situation, which was this. So, a little bit of history is we were paying all of our employees, even our part-timers, full pay. So thankfully we had a pretty flush business where we were able to do that. We had not received the payroll protection program at that point, right? So no government assistance. We were just floating everyone at full pay while, we were closed, which we had pivoted to virtual. So we were realizing some revenue, but not full revenue, not enough to support everyone at full salary, right? But we were doing that anyway. And I felt really good about it. And so when we got this surprise, like, hey, you can open like this Friday, it was like, I think the message came out on a Wednesday, and it was like, you can open on Friday, which is 2 days from then. We pushed ours back to the following Monday, because we had an industrial fogging or industrial cleaning company come in to do this sort of COVID fogging that would kill all the virus and the air ducts and everything, right? Just make us feel good about reopening. So we pushed it back to Monday, but I thought as the entrepreneur, like, this is amazing. We're open. I can't believe gyms made it into phase 1, right? Here's what we're going to do. And so I jump on our communication channel and I push it out there. Hey, we're opening Monday. We got this fogging company coming Saturday. Here's what we're going to do. And I lay it all out. And of course, I'm ultimately super excited because in my mind, yes, I want to get back to some normalcy. This is our chance to salvage revenue. And I'm thinking through the lens of the folks that work for me. And this is your opportunity to continue to get paid if, in fact, this PPP program doesn't come through. This is our opportunity to keep everything rolling, right? And I think my mistake was A, expecting everyone to be as enthusiastic about opening as I was, and B, understanding all the business metrics that I had touched on a high level, but it's just not a normal part of the vernacular that I talk about with my team is like, P&Ls and profits and how long is our runway and how much further can we go? And, there was some mention of it, but not a lot of detail. And so what I received back was, I guess, just resistance would be the main term that I would use, which is, hesitation, a little bit of fear, and what I had to do was give my team maybe a little bit more grace than I did, because my knee-jerk reaction, embarrassingly, was just, I was upset. I was a little bit hurt. I was like personally offended that I had carried these folks at full pay, and now they were balking and coming back to work to save their job and the business that was supporting them and all that kind of stuff that rattles around in the head of an owner and an entrepreneur in the middle of the night, right? And when I look back on it, it's like, well, of course, first of all, they're human just like anyone else, right? So they have the same fears and challenges as every other person in our society. And just because as an entrepreneur, I might be a bit more cavalier, or I might, my lens on the data might be a little different, or I'm more comfortable with the safety precautions that we're taking or what have you. Maybe they're not in that space. And I just was under the assumption that like, we're all in this together and we all think the same way and we're all the same person, and we're not. And, and rightly so. Of course we're not, right? Now that in hindsight, I see it that way. So I was surprised, and there was some hesitation, and, some, people were like nervous about coming back. Some didn't want to come back at all. And so it was an eye opener for me. And so when I think back on it, like the poor leadership part was not to understand that ahead of time. And then to get, we were still having meetings once a week, and this was kind of midweeks. We'd already had our weekly meeting. So I just bump it out there. Hey, we're opening Monday. Bam, let's do this. Reach out to your clients, get them back in. Let's get this thing rolling. And it was a little bit of crickets at first, which I thought was odd. Then start posting, what do you think about this? Some really like, polarizing article from either CNN or Fox, depending on what end you're on. I'm getting it from both sides. It's just like all of it's crazy, right? And I'm just like, okay, wait a minute. Are you guys nervous about coming in? And it's like, yes, I'm not comfortable. Yes, I'm not comfortable. And so then I'm like, well, if you don't come to work now and you're not servicing revenue, you ain't getting paid. And so what it came across as is like, who's not comfortable? And everyone's like, me. I'm like, great, you don't get paid. And so it just wasn't handled in the right way, when the realities were you weren't going to get paid. It felt like I was strong arming them into coming back. I wasn't doing that. Situationally, that was exactly the reality of what was happening. But the way that I handled it and the way I communicated it and the assumption that everyone was going to be as excited as me to reopen was where I was sort of swinging and missing. So I would just tell any of your listeners just to be aware of that when you do go to roll out, whenever that is. Like, I hope, Jim, that you guys are able to petition and get yourself open. When you do that, you're going to reach out to some people on your team. They're not entrepreneurs. They're not as free thinking. Maybe they're not as cavalier and, sort of rogue and off the outside the boundaries like you are, which kind of makes a good entrepreneur. But they may be fearful. Some of my team were fearful that if we opened and we weren't perfectly in line with the regulations, and we were, but they weren't, we didn't discuss that. That's like the police were swing by and they might get arrested if they were working. And of course, to me, I'm like, what? No, they would never. Come on, But I mean, those were real fears from people that work with me, and on our team. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not that you don't want to come back to work. You're literally scared about the logistics, or you're scared about this, or you're scared about that, or you're concerned with this or that. And it's like, oh, okay, good. So there's a lot more communication that needed to happen from me, for us to open, certainly earlier than was originally anticipated, because we were set to open May 1st, and the governor jumps on and says, hey, yeah, next week. And it was like a week early. So I think there was a little bit of, whoa, wait, already? I thought it was not until May, and so I made the mistake again of assuming that my team wasn't like everyone else, and that they were somehow superhuman and could just oversee all of those things and conquer all those fears. And so that's what I would say to you guys. And there's going to be, this didn't happen to me per se, but for those of you guys that are paying staff for like front desk and things like that full time, or maybe just your particular market has a lower wage, there are people that are going to be making more on unemployment. So don't expect them to start doing cartwheels back into your facility when you're like, hey, we're reopened, let's do this. And they're like, I wasn't really sure I wanted to work for you forever anyway. And now's a great chance for me to make maybe more than I was working for you while I figure out what I want to do next in my life. And so again, just, you might want to think about that and anticipate that as well. So anyway, that's, I hope that's not too much information, or I hope that makes sense. I didn't talk around it too much, but it was just a little bit of a swing and a miss as a leader, and you live and learn, but we got it all squared away. Only let go of one person, right, out of my whole team, and everyone else came back. And what I ended up doing, Jim, was just calling each individual like over the weekend, because we were set to open Monday. And this kind of back and forth is going on. Like, I announced we're opening Thursday, and by mid Friday, we're still like, we're still jockeying back and forth and push, pull. So I just start calling everybody on the team one at a time. Well, what are your concerns? What were you confused about? How can I help? Where are you with everything? Are you coming back or not? That type of thing. And so I should have done that originally. Now, that's what I would offer as advice in this situation: get your team together and really talk it out. Make sure everyone gets to air out all their concerns, and you can address those. And be prepared that some people might not be ready to come back, and you have to then be prepared to make tough decisions if you can't financially support them.
Yeah. And that's great advice. When I first heard you say that, that made so much sense to me, because it's so tempting to see everything through the lens of the entrepreneur and the owner. Like, oh, good, we're back in business. But you have to see things from their perspective. Like you said, they may be making more on unemployment than they will be from working, or they're thinking, I'm getting paid full salary and I'm not working. This is great. I can do this indefinitely.
Excited about waking up at 5 a.m. I've been sleeping until 9. It's like, of course they're not excited. I wouldn't be excited with that, right? So yeah, just obvious now that when you really think about it. I'm sure people listen to me like, duh, dude. I'm like, yeah, but put yourself in my shoes. I went from like, we're closed for another 2 weeks, so like, you can open tomorrow. I'm like, I'm doing backflips, and it's like, it kind of puts you in that activity mode. It's kind of like where you are, Jim, where you're going to file petitions. Like, anytime as an entrepreneur that you feel like you've got a fight, that you're in the fight, you're excited, right? And so it's like, oh, I'm back in, like, game on. I wasn't just shut down waiting to see what was going to happen. It was like, and we had already dialed in virtual and all that had settled down. So I was just literally just bored. So now it's like, boom, back on. And I'm like full steam ahead, and that's the energy of the entrepreneur, but that's not going to be shared by your team.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. So I want to move on next to your pre-opening prep. So what did that look like prior to opening? What were you guys doing before the announcements? And then you probably had to go into the flight of the bumblebee once you heard the announcement.
For sure. So before the announcements, we weren't really doing anything because we weren't open for business, right? So if anything, we were messier than normal, meaning we were still getting shipments in of just random cleaning supplies or whatever. And there's all these UPS boxes stacked up behind the desk because no one had been there to open them and put them away. Or if they were, we figured out we got a few weeks to tidy things up, right? The back storage room needed to be cleaned out. That was one of the projects that my general manager was working on. That hadn't been done. So there's a lot of things that were just kind of up in the air. And all of a sudden it was like, go. And so it was like, oh, we got a lot to do. And so it first started with just tidying up the place. I used an example on another podcast of perception is reality. I think it might have been the one that we did on it. But there's a guy down the street from me that owns a small gym. It's a general service gym, but it's a smaller model. So he opened with some integrity and did a good job of it. But it's funny, we were talking about it. He opened the first day, which we were allowed to open, I think, on a Friday, again Monday. So I go in there like on a Saturday, and he was bemoaning the fact that we had a really windy day and had blown a lot of leaves into the front entrance of his gym. And so he comes in and his team is doing exactly what he said, which is they're diligently wiping down all the equipment with the disinfectant and things, keeping the gym safe from the virus. But what they failed to realize, and what he was sort of moaning and groaning about, and I was laughing, was that there was a ton of leaves in the front of the facility. And so, as you know, perception's reality. So people walk in and it's like, this place, it looked like the place hadn't been cleaned in a month, even though it was extremely clean. And he had done an amazing job, meeting all the criteria that he needed to and actually going above and beyond. It wouldn't matter, though, if clients walked in and saw a bunch of leaves in the front of the facility. The perception is it's not clean. So to your question, the first thing we had to do was tidy the place up. And I mean, break down all the boxes, clean them all up, because when people walk in, we want them to see that it's clean and organized. And even if the place is just hospital clinically clean, right? It doesn't matter if it's messy. The perception is that it's dirty. And certainly if you can't put boxes away, there's no way you wipe down all the equipment, right? Which might not be true, but again, perception's reality, right? So we had to clean the place up. And then I mentioned before, on the Saturday before we opened, we had a commercial cleaning company come out and they have a COVID related treatment. It's basically a cleaning and then a dry fogging of the facility. And it supposedly kills any viruses or any kind of germs. And they list out, all the things that they do and how it works. But they even, took the air filters out and sprayed in our duct system and everything. It's not toxic, but it kills the virus. So we did that, and we not only did we do it, Jim, but we filmed it and took pictures of it and made it very public to our own members, and then also to the general public. Like, hey, we're reopening. Here's some things that we're doing to keep the place safe, which is great. I mean, anytime you can show like any kind of down and dirty what you're doing just to build consumer confidence, that's a great idea. We did little things like, obviously we've got disinfectant wipes, right? We're propping the doors open or putting the foot or elbow openers on the door so people don't have to touch the door handles, right? We leave the front door open so people can just either just walk right in, or if it's raining, we crack it and they can stick a foot or an elbow in there. They don't have to touch anything. There's no signing in at our front desk, right? You just blow right by and go to your workout. So all those things are done. And again, we were very public about what we were doing so that they could see the level of detail that we were going to, and every little thing mattered, because how this virus is very polarizing. And so some people it's masks, some people it's touching things, and I think it can be spread, who knows, right? Who knows how many ways or how. I think we'll learn over time, but I think everyone has something they're hung up on, it seems like, right? So we wanted to touch on all the little things that we were doing. And then from a programming standpoint, we just switched everything. So it was like you could exercise in your own space with your own equipment. And then after each session, all that equipment was wiped down, right? And so those are all the things that we did opening. And it was similar to the things that we were doing before we closed, honestly. We had already gotten to that point. So we reopened very similarly to how we closed. We just had a little bit more emphasis on the cleanliness and the fogging and all the things that we were doing so that we could take that message to our members and to the general public, because we were marketing as well.
Yeah, I agree. Then that's great advice, because I think previous guests said it best, is trust is the new currency post-COVID. They need to be able to trust the fact that they are safe going back to your gym. So that's great advice. So did you guys limit your capacity?
We didn't. As you know, Jim, we've talked about this before. We had pivoted to a model that just does personal training, and we service it in what we call small group personal training. So the numbers are pretty low anyway, and we have enough space with the number of clients, even at our max capacity, where we can then practice social distancing, right? And so that was just, we had done it from a competitive analysis and advantage moving forward. Like, who do we want to be in the future? What makes us different? What are people not doing? But it just so turns out that it worked out to be the ideal model for, this post-COVID, certainly moving forward. It looks good, and it was perfect to reopen with. And we can control it. We can spread people out. There's plenty of space for the maximum number of people that we put in here.
Gotcha. Okay. And then let's talk about the political climate, because regardless of where you fall as an owner on this, whatever, in like everybody's going to die to, it's the common cold, that's irrelevant. What you don't want to happen is to make the wrong move, that social signaling, like you were saying, and have that kill your gym. So what measures have you taken to address that?
Yeah, I think there's really two fronts, right? There's the general public that doesn't know you. And we'll talk about, I think marketing's on our list of things to talk about here in a minute. Mm-hmm. So, what do you take to market on one hand? But the other is your existing members, because your easiest way to realize revenue the fastest is to get your current members back into the gym. So we had a lot of members on virtual, which we'd actually had a bit of a reduced rate to go to virtual across the board. So our best opportunity for revenue was to get our existing members back into the gym, off of virtual and back to live training, right? Because it was going to bump our revenue a bit. And so with that group, it was a little different. We could just simply say, hey, we're open and here's all the precautions that we're taking. Now, even with our existing members who there's trust already and everything, there is still going to be a bit of a divide depending on which camp that you sit in, right? How you decipher the data around COVID. It's unfortunate. I've talked about this before. It's not political. It's legitimately political in some realm, but let's just take politics out of it completely, which is the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. It's political in the sense certainly through today's lens, where it drives a wedge between people, and to a point where you're right or you're wrong, right? It's like, I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right, I'm wrong, whatever that is, right? And that typically only lives in politics, religion, sex, things that you as an entrepreneur, keep that shit out of your business, right? Because you don't
100.
But this is forcing you to pull something that feels like those other subjects into your business, because you are forced to make a decision. It's not an easy time to be a leader, because you hope history's on the right side of your decision, but you really don't know. So you're just doing the best you can. So to our current members, actually, that was the message, Jim. We were 100% as transparent as possible, saying, listen, guys, we don't know everything. We're not claiming to be infectious disease specialists. I don't know this. I don't know that. Like, here's what we do know. For what we're doing, this is about as safe as we can possibly be. If you don't feel comfortable coming in, don't come in. We get it. We still have virtual for you, and we'll keep you there. But if you want to come in, here's all the things that we're doing. And we even mentioned some things, this is more on our private communications, emails, and our private Facebook page and whatnot, just to say, like, hey man, like, give us some grace, right? Like, you might feel strongly that we shouldn't be open yet, but keep in mind, there's a whole nother way to look at that data where people feel just as strongly that we shouldn't. And we went to our members with the exact message that you said, which is like, listen, on one hand, if you go outside, you're killing everyone's grandparents. On the other hand, this is a government conspiracy to crash the economy. I'm like, what? And I said, most of us live somewhere in between, and we're doing our best, including me, to decipher this data the best we can and make good decisions based on that. That's what I'm doing. So if you don't agree, I get it, but please just give us a little bit of grace, and we're going to do the same thing with you guys, right? And so that's about as transparent as I could be, and we felt like that was the best message. Now, that was to our existing members, because that was our obviously low-hanging fruit for bumping revenue. And then to the general public, we just started marketing as usual. And it's like, if there's somebody out there who I've never met, who I don't know, who feels like I'm opening too early, I mean, shit, I don't know. They probably weren't going to come in anyway, honestly. And there's not a lot I can do about that. Again, it's an unfortunate byproduct of a very polarizing, topic. And there's nothing I can do. It's like, I have to be open, and I think I'm doing it well. And so I hope history's on the right side of that. That's what we're choosing to do. And we're just taking regular marketing messages to market and saying, look, we're open, we're really safe. Here's all the things that we're doing. If you're one of the people that feels like you could go to a gym because you're also going to the grocery store, good on you. I mean, we even use statements, trying to promote statements that, are maybe a bit more rational. Like, one of our clients during a dynamic warm-up on the first day that we were open, she's a, pretty loud, outspoken client, and that's good. You always know where she stands. And we're in the dynamic warm-up, and she says really loud, wow, this place is like 50 times cleaner than the produce department at Kroger, which is our local grocery store. So I'm like, perfect. Like, that's somebody who's like, she was nervous to come in. She wasn't really sure, but she got there. And I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but she's thinking, well, I go to the grocery store all the time. I have to buy food for my family. The produce section is disgusting. This place is like 50 times cleaner than that. So I don't know why, if I'm going there, why I would feel uncomfortable coming here, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was a simple yet profound statement for a good, kind of the way that we're looking at it is like, we got to live. And so, like, we're going to make this probably the cleanest place and the safest place that you frequent, believe me. And it was good to see someone acknowledge that without any prompting. So yeah, I hope that helps. I know I talked around it, but I think it's almost a different message to your clients, unapologetically opening, but saying, look, you might not all agree with me, and I can't help that, but just give us some grace. We're doing the best we can, and here's all the precautions that we're taking on your behalf. We don't want to kill all of you, right? And on the other hand, to the general public, I would say, like, just show the things that you're doing and just run your ads and go for it, because you can't, if you're offending someone out there, you won't know it anyway. And what else are you going to do? There's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the overall message is, regardless of how you feel about this whole thing, this whole situation, the business principles still apply. Run your business like a business, and not like it's your soapbox, your own professional soapbox.
Yeah,
So
I mean, you should keep that stuff out of your business anyway. Like, if you own a
right.
business and you're posting about government conspiracies and stuff like that, you're probably the same person that's pissed off about the election results and everything else. And you might be, like, good on you if you are. I mean, it's whatever. But I don't think that has any place in your business. And in a lot of ways, I think if you are politicizing your personal Facebook post, you're committing professional suicide in so many ways. That's my opinion. If you want to use this time as a platform to speak on all things that you believe to be true, so be it. But don't be surprised if it jacks up your business.
Yep, I agree 100%. All right, and then moving on, I love this statement because it's such, like you said, it's not an easy time to be a leader because you have to wrestle with the fact, like, can I open? Can I not open? Should I open? Should I not open? If I open, how should I open? All of these things, but within all that, it's a time sensitive situation because if your competitor opens before you may be gone. You want to share about that?
Yeah, and I don't know where I got this. I might have heard it from someone else. I don't even know, but I love the analogy as well. And so the analogy was, you don't want to be sitting still at the green light, right? While all the traffic passes you by. And that analogy was used for you not opening, like choosing to not open for whatever reason right now, but yet you're allowed to be open, which means you do have a good deal of competitors who are opening. And so while they're open, for that big chunk of the population that decides that they are going to try to make their way back to a gym and be healthy, right? As healthy as they can, they're going to grab that market share. And some of them might be existing members in your gym, and some might be potential members in your gym. The fact is, you're not going to get them. And so as an entrepreneur, that was an influence for us. It's like, well, if we're allowed to be open, as long as we feel good about it and we're doing everything we can, we better freaking open, because if we don't, there's everyone else in our market that isn't as fear-based as we are. They're going to open and they're going to run right past us. And the only thing that would justify that is if I felt so strongly about it that I thought it was the right thing to do, and I was willing to risk my livelihood and the livelihood of all of my teammates and the 28 years in business that we had on the fact that I knew more about the data than everyone else out there, right? And somehow I had some secret inside information, and I had become an infectious disease specialist, and I knew enough to crash my entire business. That's the only way I could see not doing that, and I certainly can't say that. So for me, it was like open or die. I mean, really, this is kind of what it felt like, right? And not in the literal sense, but obviously. So because of that, we opened, and you know what? Some of our competitors didn't. And you know what? We sold 6 memberships the first week. So one a day in a studio model ain't bad. If our churn rate's only 3%, so we're losing, in a month, 9 people, but we're selling 24. That's a good growth for a studio that's been in business for 30 years, right? I'll take 15 net clients a month because we're almost at capacity anyway. And there's a guy down the street from me said the same thing. So again, a little anecdotal evidence that maybe it's a good idea. He opened on the first Friday that he was allowed. A lot of people waited, and he's a general service gym, but he said, listen, I sold more memberships in 3 days, in the first 3 days, than I sold in the last month before this COVID thing kicked off. Why? Because he was open. And granted, it's like, taking temperatures, everything's wiped down. So I feel like based on what we know, he's doing a great job of keeping the place clean and safe. But the fact is, he was open and sold more memberships than he had in the previous month before COVID even started. So there's something to be said for that, you guys. If you do plan on opening eventually, you really need to stress test your hesitancy to open now versus 2 weeks from now. Like, what's going to change in 2 weeks? Like, how long are you going to wait, right? And to be honest, was your business not healthy before, and this is going to be your out and your excuse to get out? If that's so, just get out. Don't just quit. Like, I get it. Sometimes you shouldn't carry on, right? But if you're running a good business and you're ready to ball, you better get on it when they open the gates, or else everybody's going to pass you by.
Yeah, because I think there's a fair chunk of the population that's just chomping at the bit. I mean, we're a small training store. We're 3,000 square feet. And I got a phone call earlier this week from a trainer at Lifetime. He said, man, can I just come into your place and train? I am dying to train. And I had to tell him, I'm like, dude, I would love to have you, but I can't. It would just,
Right.
it would, my staff would revolt, my clients would revolt, like it would just be bad. So I can't do it. But the point is that he's not the only one. There are tons of people chomping at the bit. So if you're the first one to open and you do it right, then it could be a big acceleration on your business for sure. That's good advice. So let's talk about your marketing, what it looked like before you open, when you open, what's your marketing strategy for the next 90 days, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're going right back to what we were doing that worked before. And I think when you really look at the landscape, and this is just an opinion, this certainly isn't based on science or any kind of market research or anything. It's just kind of a feel thing where now that we're open, you can get out, Jim, here on a weekday, and there's a lot of traffic. And like Cinco de Mayo, my family and I went to a Mexican restaurant and drank margaritas. I mean, like shit's normalizing here. Like, yeah, don't. I know you're really jealous. I can see right now you're like, but yeah, I mean, right or wrong, like I mean, the tables were far apart. Everybody's wearing masks and gloves that's serving you. Like whatever, I felt fine about it. And so,
how do you drink a margarita with a mask?
Right? No. They had on the masks, right?
Oh, the servers.
You put a little straw hole in there, but that's the whole. So yeah, so we're out doing that. And so when you look at marketing overall, like, do you really want to address, like, who are you marketing to? You said just now, there's a huge chunk of people can't wait to get the hell out of the house, right? That's enough people to fill up a studio model, right? And you've got all your existing clients who you're gonna gather a good deal of them back. So it's not like you're trying to sell 400 new people into your studio. That would be great, but most of us couldn't even take that many clients, right? If we already have a good chunk. Mm-hmm. So if you like, who are you marketing to? Are you marketing to the most nervous people that are the least likely to leave their house for any reason, much less come to your gym? If so, make all your advertising about how safe it is and everything else, right? But I would say, based on the feel here, now that we've been going for a few weeks, is that I would just take my normal marketing message out there. Like, sure, organically, as you know, people spend a lot of time researching your brand and looking on your Facebook page and everything before they ever make that first appointment. It's rarely a knee-jerk purchase of personal training, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, if obesity is one of the risk factors here, I can't control if there's a virus, but by gosh, I'm going to get out there and get myself in shape. Plus, I've been quarantined and I'm feeling like a slob, and I need to get out there and I need to do something about this, right? And that's the person that we want to get, right? We're not trying to convince someone else that we're so safe that they can, pull the plastic down from their basement door and finally come out and come to the gym. I mean, that's not the person I'm going for. So you just have to be careful not to be too COVID heavy, I think, in your marketing, because I think the people that do want to get out and about, that feel safe, need to have enough info that makes them feel safe. But if you're all COVID prevention the whole time, it's like, for the love of gosh, like people are tired of talking about it. They're tired of hearing about it. They want normalcy in their lives. So put out a marketing message to those people that do want to get out of the house and they don't want to talk about COVID and they just want to get healthy. And so regular marketing, right? We're going back to our 28-day challenge, which is like, it's half off your first month. And we're just going with a regular old marketing message. Nothing anti-COVID, no, like you said, yes, safety and all those things. But you know what? They're going to see all that anyway if they research your brand and you're putting those things organically on your pages and putting those messages out. But if you run advertising that only speaks about safety and this and that, who are you really talking to? The most nervous percentage of the population? Because that's the only people that need to hear that. Everyone else is relatively intelligent. They know what's going on. They're making that choice already. So give them something that gives them a break from all the negative news about COVID. That's just my take on it. Thoughts?
Yeah, that's interesting, and that makes total sense because it's like anything else. Like when a new technology, you have the early adapters and then you have the late adapters. Same thing is going to be true with COVID. So you want to target those early adapters who are probably falling more into that cavalier camp. So in the first 90 days, do you want to start adding in some marketing material to target those nervous people or not? Or you think it'll just happen organically?
I think it's going to happen organically. And I think, obviously, as this thing progresses, we're going to see, right? I mean, it feels like it's changing on a daily basis. And so I think as the dust settles or doesn't, we'll know more. And at that point, we can change. But right now, in my markets, people are ready to get out of the house. The parks are packed. The mountain bike park down the street from our gym is packed. We sit on the golf course. All I can hear is people teeing off all day behind us. If I open my back door, everyone is out and about and sick of being at home. And so if that's the case, and there's a huge chunk of the population that's there, that's the low-hanging fruit. Next, the lowest hanging fruit is your existing members, getting them to come back. There's a whole bunch of people that want a place to work out, right? and
Mhm.
we're open, we're running, we're safe, great. So we're just taking a regular marketing message out there, and we're more marketing like, hey, high energy, get back to normalcy, we're good to go. They're going to research us, we're safe. If they call or we do a starting point session, which is kind of our intro, we're showing them all the things that we're doing, and we're off and running. And all I can say, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. All I can say is it seems to be working. Early indicators are that it's working well. The people we have coming in are just like, yeah, they don't even mention it. No concerns, nothing.
Awesome. Okay. If it works, don't fix it, right?
Exactly.
All
And
right.
look, over
So,
time, if we find that, like you said, and these are things I've literally said in the last few weeks, is like, hey, man, when we come out of this thing, the value propositions are going to be safety, familiarity, right, cleanliness, those type of things. But what we found is as people are getting out, they're just like, like, I get it. Like, gosh, give me, like, can I just come in, hear some music, talk to some other people that I don't live with 24/7, my family, and have a good time and not talk about COVID or politics or anything. Like, can I just get a break from my own self for 2 seconds? That's what we're seeing. And so, yeah, those other things are important, but maybe not as important from a marketing standpoint as we thought, because right now people just want normalcy. And for those that want it, that's the message we're taking to market.
yeah, it's that whole third place mentality. But in
It
this
is.
case, it's probably their second place. It's home in the gym because most people aren't working.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Yeah, that's great advice. I'm glad you had you on, Rick.
Yeah,
Um,
me too, man. Appreciate it.
I'm glad you continue to validate the fact that I continuously call you a smart guy. Um,
Some people are like, man, way to be on the tip of the spear. I'm like, just because my governor let me open first, like it's kind of like, okay, yeah, man, we are cutting edge. It's like, listen, dude, we're not, but at least we're trying and we're open, but that has nothing to do with me. I do laugh though that people have all these massive playbooks on how to do this. I'm like, I'm pretty sure no one's been through a pandemic, and part of the most people that are building playbooks, they're not open yet. Like, how do you even know? Like, if you had asked me before we opened, Jim, I would have said what you said, which is what I was saying before, which is like, yeah, when we come back to market, it's got to be safe, got to be this, got to be that. Well, the governor says open the state, traffic's packed, lines at restaurants, people are like, fuck this, let's do this. Pardon my French, right? Like, party on. It's like a
yeah.
rave here. So I'm like, all right, screw that. Like, I'm not going with safety marketing because that's just going to bring everyone down. They need a break from that. They are looking for normalcy, energy, fun, get me out of my freaking head and house for a minute. And so that's
Yeah.
what we're going with now. And the early indicators are, and it is early innings, but early indicators are it's really good so far.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great advice. I'm glad to hear that actually. Because part of me um, was glad that you went first because I'm like, oh, good. If anybody should go first, it's Rick Mayo. And then part of me was like jealous, like, fuck, I wish I was open.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about the difference that you've seen between week one and week two, because again, not being open, I don't have the perspective that you have, and I'm thinking that people are going to come back in phases.
They
What
are
have you seen?
basically that same thing. So
Okay.
remember, we opened the first week that we opened was a week earlier than the previously set date. So it almost felt early, right? And a lot of our clients were like, wait, I plan on coming back when I told you, which was the next week, right? And they're like, I'm really happy. I like the virtual, like what I'm doing great. I'm not coming back early. I'm going to come back the next week when I said I was. So first week was a little slower. We were still pretty busy, but first week was a bit slower. This week, it's the end of this week, but this week has picked up quite a bit. Next week, because we're looking forward at the schedule, it's more people, more people, more people. So it's just going to go in phases, right? But just keep in mind that our current clientele is a good representation of the overall population, right? So you've got some people that are really nervous, people that are really cavalier, and a bunch of people in the middle. And the ones in the middle are just sort of coming in as they're comfortable. But the more that we post pictures of what we're doing and how safe we are, and client feedback, and we got a success story today from somebody who was doing hybrid and working out in the gym, and quotes like it's cleaner here than the produce department. All of those things lend to more normalcy, more security. And so for the ones that are prolonging their time at home out of nerves are starting to see like, well, wait a minute. Plus they see their friends at the gym and they're like, well, hold on. I'm like, okay, I'm going back to the gym, right? So we have people like, I was going to wait, but I can't. Like we had people that said like, I'm probably not going to come in until midsummer, just till this blows over. And then lo and behold, they're back in the gym. I'm like, wait, what happened to midsummer? They're like, yeah, screw, I can't do it anymore. Like if I have to stay home one more day with my family, I'm going to light myself on fire. So I'm here. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we're safe. And they're like, oh yeah, it's way cleaner than my house. 50 times cleaner than my house. I'm happy to be here. Let's do this. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's really good. So you kind of feed that FOMO, that fear of missing out, right? So you're like, I don't know if it's safe to go back, but then they, get online and they see all these videos and testimonials and quotes of like people back in the gym, and they're loving it and they're not dropping dead or coming
and
down with COVID.
on how clean it is. And,
Right.
again, it's like, there's some sort of, I'm sure somebody's watching this who's like, oh, this is a huge mistake. You're killing everyone in there and their parents. And I hope not. I really do. I don't think I am, or I wouldn't be doing it, but I don't think I know any more than you do, or you know more than I do. So for the people that want to get out and about, I know that this is a really healthy outlet. It's great for your immune system. I'm kind of going with that line of thinking. And that being the case, man, people are really appreciative that we're here. They're joking. There's laughing. There's music. There's like, people are just like, oh, like, they'll walk in and be like, oh my God, thank God, that's
Mm-hmm.
sort of the general sentiment. And so what's also happened, Jim, that is our team, right? So the difference between week one, when it was awkward and weird and everyone was back and the staff was nervous, but they were here anyway. And, all of a sudden it's week two and everyone's like, it's fine. I'm like, how's everyone doing? I'm trying to check in after the shifts, and, I don't like actively run my gym, but I think now's a good time for me to lean in maybe more than I ever have. Right. And I'm like, how's everyone doing? How are you doing? They're like, oh, it's great. It's fine. No big deal. So even they're more comfortable because they're doing it. They're like, oh, this is safe. We are distancing. Nothing weird's happening. The clients are happy to be here. That means I'm happy to be here, right? Thinking through their lens. And so that confidence has gone up, which is great because, I can then lean on them to be like, hey, let's get more of our virtual clients to get their butts back in the gym, right? And
Yeah.
so it's just going to pick up steam. It's just not going to happen all in the first week, but it will pick up week over week.
Gotcha. That's a great point. It's a great segue to talk about online training, because I want to talk to you about that, because again, you're open. You've been open for a couple of weeks, because a lot of people are touting online training as the new thing. And I see it more as a stopgap. I see that when you first open, some people aren't going to feel comfortable coming in, so they're going to stick with the virtual. But as more and more people come into the club to train, then online training is going to be gradually diminished. And I see it being a small part of a revenue stream, but I don't see it being a major player going forward. What's your take on that?
I agree. I think it wasn't a major, it was a thing before COVID, and it will be a thing after COVID. How much of a thing? I'm not sure. When we talk about those different segments of the population, the only ones that would continue on with virtual training would be ones that are fearful of coming back to a regular gym. But again, you'd have to stress test that ideal. If things shake out to be okay and this thing flatlines and starts to decline, right, over time, then those people would have to stress test, well, what about restaurants, grocery stores, like any other place that you go, right? Certainly in a model like yours and mine, right? We're safe. So, but those people, yeah, they might stay virtual. But I can tell you, to a person, with the hundreds and hundreds of clients that we have, not one of them is like, yeah, this has been amazing. I'm never coming back to the gym. They can't wait to get back to the gym, because it's the third place. It's the community, right? The
Mm-hmm.
workouts that we designed at home, because you've been involved with the Alloy app, and it's awesome. It's like the best tool possible for online training. And we were servicing it in a one-on-one fashion. So our level of service, if you think about it, had actually gone up in some ways. We were just servicing it virtually, but it was basically one-on-one training serviced virtually. And so our clients were ecstatic with that service, and they loved it. And we kept all this engagement, all this positive feedback. All that being said, when given the opportunity to come back, they came back, right? They weren't like, oh yeah, it was so good that I never want to see you guys again. I always want to be virtual. I think that's false. I do. I think, will it still be around? Yes. Will it become the standard for the industry? No. If it was, it would have been already. This thing is going to pass. We might operate different, in the future than we do now, just based on what we learn, over the next 6, 8 months, 12 months, whatever that is. Virtual will be right back where it was, I do believe. And if not, then, again, I'll be eating crow in 12 months. But I don't think so, man. It's not engaging enough. It's not the retention rate for virtual only clients isn't great when you look at virtual only companies, right? They're typically selling blocks of like 2 months, 1 month, 3 months, things like that. You pay up front, then you're done. And you might swing back to them like 3 years from now in the future if you want to tweak something up, but there's no one who's paying year over year, month over month for 36 months, establishing relationships with friends and community at the gym and getting that third place, as you mentioned, online. It's just impossible. People need less of online and more human interaction. So in the safest way we can do that, I think that's where we end up right back where we were.
Yeah, I agree. And talking about the Alloy app, we've had the Alloy app for a long time, and every time we get a new client, we sign them into it. And then once we had to close down, and we made the switch to online, and we like, oh, log into your app, and we can build you a program through there. Yeah, and they're like, oh, you guys got an app?
And then once they log in, it's like, oh my God, this thing is amazing, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah. All it did was make us look really good and smart with our current clients. That's all it did. And it actually built more value because now they realize that we had these other tools, and they're like, I didn't know you had this. Wow, amazing, blah, blah, blah. So it just made us look smarter. And they were saying things that you and I already knew, which is why we created the app. Like, well, this is great because next time I go on vacation for a month to my beach house, I can use this to do my workouts, and you guys can hold me accountable. We're like, hello. I mean, that's why we built it in the first place, to supplement the live training. It became the tool. But the silver lining is everyone saw it. Now they have it exposed to it. Now they'll be much more apt to stay engaged with us, even from a revenue standpoint, obviously, right? While they take a break or take a vacation or whatever that is. But that's where I'm fitting in, right back to where it was. I just think it'll be more impactful because people have been exposed to it.
Yeah, I think it's a useful tool if current clients want to go on vacation, or if they travel a lot for business and they need to work out while they're on the road and need to be held accountable and all those things, why you seek out a personal trainer in the first place. And then to your other point about people need to be around with people, I take my 3-year-old son around for a walk around the neighborhood like 3 times a day. And it's a practice and patience to walk with a 3-year-old. I just will tell you that. It's been a while since you've had a 3-year-old. But anyway, so we walk by the school, and there's this lady that goes to the parking lot of the school to do her online. You can see she's got her phone and she's doing her online workout, but she's doing it in the parking lot because she wants to be outside. She wants to be around other people. Even though that's her only option for working out right now, she still wants to do it in as close proximity to other people and outside as possible versus being cooped up in her home. So I think that I agree with you 100%. That's where I see online training going. Well, Rick, that's all of the things that I've had on my list, and this has been very informative. I know I've learned a lot. I always do every time I talk to you. So I really appreciate it. Is there anything that we missed or anything you want to add that I didn't see? I mean, because you got the bird's eye view on this thing.
Yeah, listen, I'll just say, let's stay in touch. If you want to jump on here again in a few more weeks, I think things are changing. I've already disproven some of my previous beliefs around how to market, right? And kind of what the general feel of the general public was. They're not as nervous and scared, like I said, as we thought they would be. And so we've changed our marketing strategy with just regular old marketing, working really well. So I think, we're going to learn more over the next few weeks, and we are fortunate and unfortunate enough to be ahead of everyone else. So I'll share any challenges or successes that we've had as we go along. So yeah, man, I'm happy to be on here and help you guys. Look, I love the industry. It's given me so much. So whatever I can do to help people, shortcut their ramp up back up to speed with what we learn, I'm happy to do it. So thanks for having me on, and let's touch base again in a few weeks.
Absolutely. I probably will take you up on that. So Rick, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day and have fun, man. Be safe.
Thanks.